Now let's talk about show and tell. In other words, how to structure a presentation so that the verbal and the visual elements work properly together. And let's start out with the exact opposite, what the US military call hypnotizing chickens. In other words, how not to use PowerPoint. Now, according to journalists covering the war in Iraq, US military officials used slides like this one, not to impart information, but to throw so much detail at reporters that their brains just switched off, hence the phrase hypnotizing chickens. This all stems from the way our brains process information, and unless you want to send your audience to sleep, you need to plan this very carefully. Don't put a massive chunk of text up on the screen all at once. You lot are not stupid, you can read pretty fast. And you can't help yourself, you'll just get on with reading this, whatever I might be talking about or doing here in front of you. So you'll already be racing ahead of me. Most people can read text at approximately 300 words per minute, but the fastest I can talk is about 160 words per minute. So I'm saying one thing while your brain is processing another. You're not really concentrating on what I'm saying anymore. Worse still, you start to resent me for reading so bloody slowly. We're not stupid, you think. We can read this for ourselves. This is not a good way to make your audience feel. And what kind of idiot wants to annoy their audience? Telling people exactly the same thing as you're showing them is just plain boring. If you're going to put words on the screen, make sure you put the absolute bare minimum, the essential words. In this case, the essential bit is that most people can read text at 300 words a minute, but the fastest I can speak is about 160 words a minute. So that's all you need to put on. In fact, that's probably too many words to put on the screen at once. How about this? Read 300 words a minute, speak 160 words per minute. Or better still, how about this? 300 versus 160. You'll remember the figures while I tell you in detail the different speeds and what they mean. So don't tell people exactly the same thing as you're showing them, they just get bored. But equally, you can't start telling them something while showing them something completely different. If I put this slide up while I'm talking about the Iraq War, for example, the gap between what you're seeing and what you're hearing is so great it just becomes confusing. Somewhere in between boring and confusing, there is a happy medium, and it looks like this. This is a washing line. Imagine that the visual part of your presentation is the line, and the words are the clothes. This works, by the way, for any kind of visual you use, whether it's a PowerPoint, a video, a handout, or some physical props. Think of your presentation as the timeline, like the clothes line. First, you're going to give people something to look at, some image or text. As soon as you show, you have to start telling, to talk about the text or image they're seeing. But if you stick too close to that image or text, if you go on too long telling them about what they can already see, it gets boring. So you can start talking beyond the image or the text, telling them more information than they can see. But if you stray too far from what you've shown them, it starts to become confusing. They're thinking, should I be watching or listening? So at this point you introduce a new image or text. This will automatically renew your audience's focus on what you're showing them. So for a while your words have to stick very closely to this new visual element. Then you can start to talk beyond what they can see. And then introduce a new image or text. Talk to the new visual element. Go beyond it. Introduce a new visual element, and so on. And you can see the looping pattern is like the clothes on the clothes line. Try this as an experiment. Think about your next presentation and how you're going to make the visual and verbal parts work together. What are you going to show and what are you going to tell? See if you could get your message across in just 4 minutes using just 4 visual elements.